Hi, it's Catley from All Things Sewing and Craft. So I will be interviewing the lovely Elizabeth Haywood today, and she has written and published, self-published, Zero Waste Sewing. I wanted to find out more about her book and also just a bit about herself, as well as anything that's coming up in the near future. So that's what this interview is about. And being a sewer myself, as well as a lot of you other ladies in the group, I just thought that this would be an interesting subject for me to bring to you. So without further ado, I will start by saying welcome, Elizabeth, and thank you for joining me at All Things Sewing and Craft. So the first question I have is, can you tell us about yourself and how you got into sewing and that sort of thing?
Hi everyone, I'm Liz Haywood. I trained as a clothing pattern maker when I finished high school, and I was lucky to find something that I really loved doing. And then I actually started my career as a clothing cutter. So I worked as either a pattern maker or a clothing cutter, or both, in factories in Adelaide and a little while in London. And then after 20 years, we had a family and moved to the country. And I finished writing a book that I started. It's called The Dressmaker's Companion, which is this one. It's a sewing reference. About 4 years ago, I discovered zero waste pattern making, and I was intrigued and decided to try it to see if it was hard, because it sounded difficult. But I found that it was actually a lot of fun and more interesting than regular pattern making, and I clicked immediately with it. And then I brought out this book, Zero Waste Sewing, which is a collection of zero waste sewing patterns that came out earlier this year.
Also, can you tell us exactly what zero waste patterns are? Because I've personally never heard of it until I saw your posts on your blog. So I'll be fascinated, as well as everybody else, to find out more about that. And also, is it really zero waste patterns?
A zero waste sewing pattern uses 100% of the fabric with no scraps or waste. So the pattern pieces fit together like a giant jigsaw puzzle. It is not a new idea. It's a very old idea which is currently being experimented with by pattern makers and clothing manufacturers to see if it's one way that we can help make fashion more sustainable and environmentally friendly. Currently about 15% of the fabric used in clothes just gets wasted, which globally is a huge amount of waste. And if we can get that down or get rid of that waste completely, then we'll be able to use the resources we have a lot better. A zero waste sewing pattern has some other advantages other than the of no waste, and one is that they're often very economical on fabric. So I've found that they use the same amount or less fabric than a regular garment of the same type. Because we aren't wasting any fabric, we get the full use of what we do have. Another advantage of a zero waste sewing pattern is that it has great potential as a design tool to make more creative and interesting clothes. So a zero waste pattern is designed a little bit different from how we design regular clothes. Normally the designer does a sketch and hands it to the pattern maker to make a pattern, and then the pattern is graded and then a cutting layout is made. But with zero waste patterns, it's made around the other way. So the design emerges as the cutting layout and pattern are made all together. So instead of starting with a traditional instead of starting with a traditional design sketch, like how we make clothes now, we don't really know what the design's going to be until the pattern is made. So this is quite a different way of designing, but quite an exciting one, I think. So it's using pattern making as the design tool.
What led you to write this book?
I discovered zero waste pattern making through the book Zero Waste Fashion Design, and then after it came out in 2016, I wondered if anyone else would write a book about zero waste clothes or pattern making. And then I thought, hey, maybe that person could be me.
How long did it take you to design the patterns in the book? Because that would have taken you a very long time, I suspect.
It took 15 months. I started mid 2018. But considering the Dressmaker's Companion took 10 years, I think 15 months is a new personal best.
Can plus size people use your book and use the patterns within the book?
The answer is yes. The size range in the book goes from size 8 to size 28, so bust size 34 inch to 54 inch. So if you're bigger than a size 46 inch bust, you'll be able to make at least 11 of the 16 projects. So it still makes it a very economical way to buy sewing patterns, and you'll still be able to try most of the things in the book. Size inclusivity is important to me, but it's really hard to do as zero waste because the sizing has to be thought about as the cutting layout is being made. You can't just make the pattern like how we do regularly and then grade it afterwards.
Do you plan on writing any other books, and if so, what would be the subject, if you're allowed to say?
I had planned to do another book of zero waste sewing patterns because zero waste sewing was a complete joy to write from beginning to end. But instead I decided to try writing individual patterns and releasing them as downloadable PDFs. And that way I'm not constrained by the number of pages that the pattern has to be like you are in a book, and they're instantly available.
My very last question to you is, where can we purchase your book and how much does it cost?
The book costs 45 Australian dollars, and you can Australians can buy direct from me in my Etsy shop, The Craft of Clothes. The rest of the world can buy them via their local bookshop or their local online bookshop, and you can just do a search to find out where it's available. And I have a website called The Craft of Clothes where I write a weekly sewing and fashion blog, and I also have a monthly newsletter where I write about things that might interest you.
Well, that's all I have for Elizabeth at the moment. So thank you very much, Elizabeth, for joining me at All Things Sewing and Craft. And just lastly, because of technical difficulties, we were unable to do a live video tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So this video has been pre-recorded, and then at 11 o'clock, instead of doing a live, I will actually be doing a Facebook group room, which is basically a video chat, and you're all welcome to join in, and Elizabeth and I will be there to do that. And if you have any questions after watching the video that haven't been answered, feel free to ask Elizabeth. Thank you all for watching, and again, thank you very much, Elizabeth, for your time in doing an interview with All Things Sewing and Craft and myself.
Well, that was really hard, sitting in a room talking to a camera by myself, but I hope that's okay. If you have a question, please, if you're watching this on Facebook and you have a question, please feel free to leave a comment and I will answer it in the comments. Thank you very much, Catley. Thanks for having me. Bye. Here are some of the projects in zero waste sewing.